Well, what's going on, everyone? I'm back! It's been, what, 3 weeks since I actually streamed, which feels like forever when it comes to streaming time, but hey, I'm here, and I'm ready to rock and roll. So, past couple weeks, obviously a couple weeks ago, I was out of town for a week. I went to a summer camp to play in the band there, had an awesome time. But while I was there, I got COVID, so then the next week I didn't do stream either. And then, of course, here in the U.S., Monday was July 4th. So I've been out for now 2.5, almost 3 weeks. But we're back, and we got a new miniature today to paint and to do some awesome stuff too. So without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce the new miniature. So the new miniature we got is this guy right here. I posted him in my Discord a little while ago, but he is a hobgoblin caster. So we've got a couple different things going on. We've got his staff as well as this little flame in his hand. Both of these are going to give us a good opportunity to do object source lighting. So my plan right now is to have both the staff and the flame in his hand emit some light source, but I'm gonna have them be different lighting. So I'm thinking to do like a blue, like a soft blue, maybe a teal light coming from the staff, and then a magenta coming from the flame, which I think will look pretty cool. But as always, we've got to get down our base colors first, and then we're going to start glazing over and changing some of the color on the rest of him. So I think to start, we better go ahead and basically do what I always do and kind of start blocking out the colors. Obviously, a hobgoblin's skin is generally red. If you play D&D, hobgoblin's skin is generally red. So that's going to be really easy. I'm thinking I'm going to do, because he's kind of got like a little undershirt and then this like cloak. I'm going to do the cloak probably a nice green, dark-ish green, and then the shirt underneath black to kind of add some little bit of warmth there. And then he's got this really cool, almost like a basket weave look to the to his little vest there. What happened to my music? Oh, it's just the song has like a massive blank spot in it. Awesome. So we're going to paint that leather. We also have some really cool accessories here and there, like the book strapped to his chest, which I'm assuming is a spell book. Staff, of course, being an arcane focus, if you guys are familiar with D&D. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get some colors down on our palette here. So I'm going to start out with a base coat on his skin with red oxide. It's kind of a brownish red, but will give us a nice starting point. So let me grab a brush here so I can put some paint on the palette. So that's going to be our skin base of our skin tone. We'll go ahead and grab some black as well, some blacks and whites, so that we can start mixing in different tones and different brightness to that, because we'll probably add a little bit of black here to darken that base color a little bit. And then for my mid-tone, I'm going to be using a color called Cadmium Red Dark, which I think will make for a nice mid-tone. And then we'll start lightening up my mid-tone with some ivory. I'm sorry, not ivory. Oh, good grief, I am blanking because I decided what colors I was going to do for once beforehand. Something I literally never do. That's right, it was going to be like a flesh tone, like a normal flesh tone, to give it a little bit of a realistic kind of look to it. So let's go ahead and start in with our painting. Grab one of my larger brushes. This is a number 3 by Winsor Newton. So we're going to take a little bit of our oxide, add just a touch of black to it to darken it up a bit. And this will be our base for our skin tone. let's get started. So as always, I'm not being super careful with this. I'm just trying to get paint down, start getting a good coverage going with our colors, and start blocking everything out. He's also got kind of a Amish style beard going on where like he's got the beard around his chin and cheeks, but nothing under his lip as far as a mustache goes, which is actually pretty consistent with the 5th edition artwork for Hobgoblins. And one of the things I'm going to be doing as well, if y'all remember on the bust that I did a while back, I had used a glaze of blue over red to kind of bring out the stubble. Well, he's kind of got this shaved look on the back of his head, so we're going to get to use that technique again. I think it turned out really, really nice. As far as the hair color goes, I'm torn between brown and black. The artwork in D&D 5th edition kind of has both going on. So if y'all have a preference, let me know in the chat. So the paint I'm using today is from a company called what is it? Golden. Their So Flat line. It's becoming more and more popular with miniature painters, even though it's really designed for kind of quote-unquote high art, but it works so incredibly well with miniatures because its coverage is amazing. It's well pigmented and it's nice and matte as far as the finish goes, which is always good because you want your color to be matte. You don't really want it to be super shiny. Got a couple pieces of support material left on his hand, just snap those off and keep going. Yeah, for whatever, so I was running out of my normal gray resin that I use, so I mixed in some clear resin, which makes finding support material to clean off incredibly difficult because it's much more translucent than normal. That's okay. We'll just remove it as we go. Like I said, I'm not really super worried about getting paint everywhere. I do try to control it so that I'm not slapping paint all over areas I don't want it, but I'm not super concerned if I do, because again, this is just the first coat, so it's not going anywhere. Now, while I am base coating his hand here, mostly just so that I can get some color going, it's not going to stay this color. More than likely, his hand is going to be a little bit more magenta because it's so close to our light source here. But again, I just want to make sure that I'm blocking out all my colors in areas where I want to paint. Nothing too fancy just yet. Now here I do want to make sure that I'm not getting a bunch of this color all over my fire source because I want to keep that as close to pure white as possible so that when I go to actually put in the color for the light source that I'm keeping all the recesses nice and white and bright so that it looks like it's an actual light source. There we go. Alright, so I think that's all the skin we have just on his face and things like that. So let me go ahead and I'm going to take a little bit of this red. We're going to start building up our mid-tone. First thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to take whatever's in my brush and I'm going to mix it in with a little bit of the original color. Let's add a little bit more red. just to start brightening it up a little bit, because I don't want a jump from that dark oxide color to the mid-tone. I want to make it look a little bit more natural. And now one of the things that I'm going to have to do when it comes to the skin on this guy, because we have two different light sources, one coming from the bottom and then one kind of coming from the side and the top, all of my highlights on either side of his face are going to be a lot different, right? So on this side, I want to light up from the bottom up. On this side, I don't want it lit like that. So it's going to be a little bit weird in the way that we actually apply our highlights. So on this side, it's going to be reversed from what I would normally do. And on the other side, it's going to be a little bit more similar to what I would normally do. Here we are. And now before I go much further, I do want to make sure that I'm hitting his eyes, because his eyes are going to be a little bit more difficult because it's so small. So let me go ahead and base coat those really quick. So I'm going to use the typical red that I normally use, which is corn red. Which should be different enough, I think, from our base coats to still give us that little line around his eyes. Let me grab my teeny tiny brush. Or not really teeny tiny, just a brush with a nice sharp point. I might actually have to go change out my water real quick. Okay, so we're just gonna go in there, base coat the eye in white or in red, and then we'll come back and paint in the whites of the eyes. And then we'll add, oops, see that right there. What in the world? My brush is bubbling. That right there is why I want to do this now, because if I make a mistake, right now it's really easy to cover up. I just go back to this paint that I've got on my palette instead of having to redo a bunch of different steps. So So I'll be right back. I'm going to change out my water real quick, because as you can see on my paper towel here, it actually has quite a bit of pigmentation from when I washed the brush that I was using to transfer paint. So I will be right back. 1 second. It takes me 2 seconds to get water. All right. Got my new water. All nice and clean. All right, so just looking through here, seeing just a little bit around this eye that I messed up. There's a little bit of work here. All right, so now I'm going to grab an ivory color. So it's, nope, no, that's the wrong one. This is the one. So Pro Acryl's Ivory, that's what I'm going to use for the whites of the eyes, because again, I don't like to use pure white because the whites of our eyes are not pure white. Dude, I swear, painting gives you an arm workout sometimes when you're shaking up the paint. Now, because of the size of the model and the size of his eyes, I'm not going to bother with like a actual like color of his eyes. I'm just going to do the whites of the eyes, and I'll just add a pupil. It is unfortunately very difficult to see his eyes too, because they're already small on the model, and this is a small model, so there we go. Gonna need to make a few corrections here. Focus is a little bit off, so let me change that real quick. That's much better. Cool. Alright, let's continue with our midtones here. Actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and add our pupil. Just in case we screw it up, we can go back and fix it real quick. Just being very, very patient with it. We got some nice googly eyes there, so we're gonna start again. Just gonna cover up our pupils with some more of that ivory color and try again. There we go. Not that hard to undo a mistake on eyes. It's just a pain because a lot of the times, at least I do, I have to do it over and over and over and over and over again until I get it right. Sometimes it takes a few passes. But you know what? It is what it is. Let's try it again here. So I want his focus to kind of be over here where the light source is. Alright, so that one looks fine. Oh, shoot. Got it all over his nose, but none on his eye. Typical. There we are. That's a lot better. Again, the focus really aren't going to be on his eyes, so I'm not super concerned with how accurate the pupils are from each other. As far as like being round or, you know, things like that. But I do want them to actually be looking in the same direction. And be at least somewhat the same size as well. Again, I'm not super concerned with it. I'm not going to spend all all day on it, but I do want it to be a little bit nicer. There we are. Now, at one eye, I intentionally, quote unquote, went outside the lines because it's a lot easier to fix the skin around the eyes than it is a pupil. Go. I think that looks great. All right, so let's continue with our skin tone. So like I said, since our light source is facing up, we're going to leave our darkest colors where we would normally add highlights. And we're going to be highlighting areas where that we normally wouldn't. Except for on the side where we have our other light source. That side is going to get a normal-ish, although it will still be directional, light source. And then we'll start on this side. So we want our light source on this side to be, it's still going to be highly directional, but it's going to be literally the opposite direction as our other highlights. And somewhere here in the middle, we need to have a transition between sides. And it's going to look kind of funky, I think, at first at least. But once we add all the colors of our light source, I think it'll start to even out a little bit. There we go. All right. Now we'll start in with our brighter red. And it's not really bright red, it's just a brighter color. And this is when we'll really start to emphasize where we want our highlights to be. We still want to maintain a nice smooth transition between highlights and shadow. Again, one of the interesting things about skin is we're not just going to paint in volumes like we would cloth, because light diffuses in skin a little bit differently than it does with cloth or metal or anything like that. So it's going to be a little bit different. There we are. And then we're going to make sure that the underside of our ears are highlighted, but the top is not. Because again, our light source is coming up from beneath. Almost has, right now at least, I almost reminds me of kind of like a Darth Maul. The way that like the red is on some of his face, but not all of it. Kind of looks cool. And again, that's going to change pretty drastically once we start adding in our lighting effect. which technically we are adding in our lighting effect now. It's just a little bit different. Sure that we're getting nice reflections and highlights on all of these raised edges here. Like so. Again, kind of, if y'all can see, it's kind of the opposite from one side to the other, which right now looks really funky and kind of weird. But it should make a little bit more sense in context once we start adding in all of our lighting. Should being the operative word. Still new at object source lighting, so it could look like total crap. But we'll see. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab more of a flesh tone, so tan flesh here. I'm going to add some of this into our red to kind of start bringing out more of a fleshy, pinky kind of tone. So we're going to go about 50-50 in here. And then we'll just add this to the points here that we want to be our brightest color. Some to the bottom. So on his head he's got these kind of wrinkles going on. They're very, very faint. But what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to put small lines of these highlights on the, like right along the top, like right, not really right above them, but that's kind of what I wanted. Ish. I'm just going to hit just the edges, some of this. Like so. And we'll do the same on the other side. And then after we're done with this, we're going to add, in very strategic places, we're going to add the pure kind of highlighted flesh tone. Just to give it a little bit more brightness. And I am incredibly new at kind of these flesh tones that aren't really quote-unquote Caucasian style flesh tones. I'm pretty good at kind of your typical like white, typical quote-unquote white skin kind of stuff, mostly because that's mostly what I do. So this red is kind of a new territory for me. We'll see how it goes. do know, like, basics of miniature painting, contrast is key. So we want some good contrast here, but exactly how that's going to look, I genuinely have no idea. So we're just going to add a little bit of this flesh tone just in strategic areas. Just to add a little bit of brightness, a little bit of directionality to the light. Like so. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Now the light on this side is a lot brighter. So we're gonna add a few more of these spots, but we're still gonna kind of go with a like less is more kind of idea. Like so. That looks super funky right now. Holy cow. Hopefully I can get, so I like each individual side by itself. I think it looks good. It's just when you combine them together, it looks kind of funky. But again, I think adding the context of the actual light source and the color of the light, I think is gonna make it look a little bit better. Right now, my mind is being like, it's very asymmetrical. They don't look the same, which is the point. I don't know. I don't like it so far, but we'll trust the process, even though I don't really know the process. But so next thing I want to do is I want to start on the larger sections of the miniature, which the next largest section will be his cape. So we'll go ahead and grab some of the green and start building up our layers on that. So we're going to start with Pro-Kryl's Camo Green, and we're just going to work our way up to Pro-Kryl's quote-unquote green. Go from there. You know what? I just realized I don't think I actually have chat. Where are you at, chat? Oh, there it is, chat box. There we go. Now it's there. I think. We'll see. Should be there now. Cool. All right. Let's start building up some layers. Now, these are the only two greens that I have from Pro-Kryl. So what I'm going to do is after I'm done layering on the camo green, I'm just going to mix them together for my mid-tone and then use the green as a highlight. Oof, it's a little rough back here. So it was kind of weird. So I 3D print 99% of the miniatures I paint on this stream. And one of the problems is every so often you get printing artifacts, especially on the side of the miniature that was facing down. And so the back of his cloak is a little bit rough, but that's not really the part of the miniature that I'm worried about. I'm more concerned with the part of the miniature that is facing the front, because that's where everybody's going to be looking. one thing I've always kind of noticed about this particular green is its coverage isn't as good as some of the other paints that Pro Acryl makes. I don't know if I'm just haven't shaken it up enough, or if somebody else has that same experience, but it always looks a little bit streaky every time I use it when compared to some of the other Pro Acryl line. But still works pretty well. So again, once we finished up this particular base coat, once we start highlighting, we've got to pay attention to our light sources again. So even though we haven't added the color for our light source, we still want to highlight as if that light was there. So again, we're going to kind of do the opposite on either of these sides from the other side, right? So for this one, the light source is actually below it, and this one, it's above it. So all of our highlights on this side are going to be on top. All these are going to be on the bottom. And then all the highlights on the back, actually, I'm probably going to make a lot darker because those highlights will not actually be lit by our light source. So they would seem a little bit duller and a little bit more dark than the ones on the other side. Also, I'm not sure if I'm going to stream on Monday or not. So Monday, I'll be driving back from Georgia. I'm going to go visit family this weekend. And I'll be driving back on Monday. So I'm not sure if I will stream then or not. Just depends on what time I get back to my house and what time and whether or not I'm absolutely exhausted from driving for around 5 hours or not. So we'll see. As of right now, I'd like to. Especially because I think this Hobgoblin looks super cool. So again, on the underside of his cloak, we still have some more of those printing artifacts. It's unfortunate, but it happens. A lot of the times you can fix those with Milliput or green stuff, which are like a putty or something like that. But again, when you're printing with basically half clear resin, it's really, really difficult to see those before you prime. And then once you've primed it, that's kind of it. And a lot of these artifacts are hard to see areas too, so I'm not terribly concerned about them. Alright. So I'm gonna go in for a second coat, especially on this left shoulder, because I'm not really liking the way it looks right now. And not only we do also have all these cool little bits and pieces of jewelry around that we're gonna be able to do some non-metallic metal on, which I always enjoy doing. So we've got some gold bits, some bits that could be silver or bronze, which bronze I have the least amount of experience doing as far as colors go. But practice is the best way to learn how to do it correctly. So while that dries, the sleeves here I'm going to paint black, so I'm just really quick gonna go ahead and base coat those. I have yet to figure out, I'm not sure if I want the bracers that he's wearing to be metallic or leather, because I think we're already gonna have a lot of leather on this mini, so I'm thinking to go with more of a metallic, maybe like a silver, and have it reflect not just like the metallic, but like also give it the colors and things like that it would naturally be reflecting. I think that would look pretty spiffy. So because of COVID and all that, this is probably one of only maybe 2 miniatures that I have painted in the past 2 weeks. So it feels really good to get back with a brush in my hand. Because before I left for that camp, I would essentially be painting I would be painting every day. So whether that was Warhammer miniatures for my army, whether that was, stuff for the tabletop, in D&D, miniatures for friends or something like that, I was pretty much painting every day. And so when I had to essentially stop because, I was sick, it's kind of frustrating for me. But that's one of the things that you always have in life, right? Sometimes you just can't do the things you love. You have to take some time out, either for yourself or for other people. You know what? It's okay. It happens. Just got to get back at it once you can. And even in times where I'm maybe not painting, or maybe you have a hobby that you do that you had to take a break for a while, that doesn't mean you have to stop learning, right? There's always stuff to learn, even when you're not actively doing a hobby. Like, I could be looking at stuff that I've done in the past, critiquing it, figuring out what I could have done better, and then applying those, or attempting to apply those lessons the next time that I am painting. So even downtime can be turned into a learning experience. You just gotta know what to look for. Alright, so let's go ahead and start in with our mid-tone. So we'll be adding a little bit more of this green in. I'm going to be adding quite a bit more green than I do have of the camo, because I do want to start bumping up the brightness pretty quickly, especially when I'm highlighting around where the light source is going to be. So the closer to my light source, the brighter in luminancy that I want all my highlights to be. And again, really at this point need to pay attention to where the light source is pointing, making sure that we get all those highlights consistent with the direction of our light. So eventually the stuff that is the closest to our light source is going to be pretty close to white. Not completely white, but pretty darn close to it. So again, just looking from the point of view of our light source to see what is going to be highlighting and what is not. Liam, how's it going, buddy? Welcome to the stream. You know, that thing that I haven't done in 2 weeks. It is a hobgoblin. Why is my chat box not showing up? There we go. Because it was in the wrong spot. So it is a hobgoblin magic caster that I got from Loot Studios, where I get 90% of the stuff I paint. I was looking through their latest pack, and I really liked the way that this guy looked, so I printed him out and painted him up today. There we are. Cool. All right, and then we'll do the other side here. This is going to be a fun one too, because we have some interesting lighting on this guy, because all the 2 light sources that I'm painting are the opposite of one another. So this source is lower than this source. So we have one source underlighting him from one side and the other one lighting over him from the other side. So it's going to be an interesting little project to tackle. Mostly because I've just never done this style where I've got multiple lighting sources. Normally the stuff that I paint typically only has a single lighting source, and typically that light source is the sun or the sky, so it's usually just shining down from above. So having 2 light sources from opposite sides, it's going to be interesting and fun. Ooh, that is a supports material. Let me pop that off real quick. Stand by. Where is my knife? Where is it? Oh well, I'll use a pair of nail clippers because that'll work. It's just got a little bit of support material left on the side here. There we go. And it's gone. The support material, it's gone. There we go. All right, so we have a little bit of the light on the bottom of his cloak, but not as much as the other side, so we're just gonna hit a little bit here, like so. That's about it. Now, one spot I forgot is he does have this little bit here, and that is part of his cloak, so I need to base coat that real quick. There we are. do believe that's good. There we go. And then we'll wait for that to dry. And while we wait for that to dry, we'll go ahead, bring in our next color here. I'm gonna add a little bit of ivory to it to brighten it up. Because these spots are so close to our light source, we're really gonna start to bump up the brightness here. Smaller area than we did before. Just making sure that we're consistent with our angles and with our direction. Like so. Like so. There we are. And we'll do the same back here. Most of this is mostly going to be just edge highlighting, because the further away from our light source we get, the less intense we want our highlights to be, because there will be a luminance drop off, right? So as far as the actual value of the light goes, the further away it goes, or the further away we get from our light source, the less of a highlight we're going to be needing, right? Because the less bright the light will be. So again, looking from our light source to our highlighted spots, trying to figure out where the light would be hitting, and then painting accordingly. Biggest thing here is just making sure that, again, and I keep repeating this because it's very, very important, just making sure that we pay attention to the direction of our light, because if we paint something that looks like it's highlighted on the opposite edge of a fold from the light source, then all it's going to look like is a bright spot, and it's not really going to look like what we want it to, right? So what we want it to look like is that piece of cloth or that piece of leather or whatever we're painting looks like it is being illuminated by that light. And if we paint a piece of it that isn't, or that wouldn't naturally be, our eyes are smart enough to catch that. Even if we may not be trained or know what we're necessarily looking at, we'll be able to tell that it doesn't look real. My goal here isn't for hyper realism, but it is at least to make it look believable as a light source. Well, enjoy. So going back to my original color here, I'm going to go ahead and start adding highlights in from for his little halberd, whatever this thing is called. It's not a halberd because that's a weapon. And the odd thing about this part, this little apron thingy that he's got going on here, is that it's going to be illuminated by both light sources. So now we have to determine which light source is going to be brighter. And I'm thinking that the fire in his hand would be brighter than his staff. At least that's how I'm going to be painting it. So we're going to make the highlights on that side significantly more intense than the highlights on the other side. We're still going to put highlights on both sides, but just we're going to make the highlights on the one side much brighter and more intense. Again, we are getting further away from our light source, so even though all the highlights on the right side are going to be more intense, so technically it's the left side, are more intense, they're not going to be as intense or as bright as the ones that are going to be right next to our light source. Okay. Next, we're going to take a little bit more of that ivory. We're going to bring up the brightness one more notch. And this is going to be kind of like the skin tone that we used on the face. We're going to be using this a little bit more sparingly. Just to give the light source some directionality and some intensity in certain areas. Welcome back. Alright, so again, just adding a little bit of that just to bring out certain points of brightness along the highlights, just in certain particular areas to give it more direction and intensity. So in the case of this arm, we're really looking for those areas that are the absolute closest to our light source, or those little bits that are flat and pointing towards our light source. Like so. Looking a little weird right now, but again, I think it'll all pull together once we actually get our lighting all set. Maybe. Maybe it'll look better. I don't know. Figure that out a little bit. That looks a little bit better. So let's go ahead and work on his arm here. I'm using a couple colors that I haven't used before, so I actually have to open them. Totally put that down on the wrong side, but it's okay. So we're going to use dark gray warm to start bringing out our midtone for our black here. So that's going to be our highlight color, and we will end up working towards this bright warm gray by Procryl. But we're going to use that as our final highlight instead of our midtone. So we're not even going to use this until we're ready to bring out the intensity closest to our light sources. So first things first, I'm going to take a little bit of black and a brush of brown, or brush of that gray. We're going to mix those two together just so that we can get a darker version of our kind of medium gray. And same kind of thing that we were doing with our cloak. We're just going to start applying this as our midtone towards the side of our light source. Like so. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. This music slaps. Just saying. This is one of the hard things about painting black, is it's really hard because, like, highlighting black, especially, it's black and white, it's really hard to make it actually read like black after highlighting and not just gray. Because your highlights are going to be gray, right? Or your shadows with white are going to be some form of gray. So it's a little bit difficult when we're talking about highlights to get all your blacks and whites correct. One thing I need to do a little bit of cleanup here. So I'm going to go back to my black and just start cleaning up the back edges of some of these highlights because they're looking a little sloppy. Mostly because it's hard to kind of see what you're doing when you're working with color like black. Just want to make sure that all of my deepest recesses are still nice and black, and that all my lines are good and sharp. Okay. So I'm going to bring in this bright gray, and I'm going to start lightening up my dark gray. Just a touch. Because again, the name of the game here is contrast. So while we don't want our black to read as gray, we still want our highlights to be nice and bright. So just adding a little bit of brightness there. Cool. And then we'll do the same thing on our other arm. Worried about blending these in too terribly much, because while I do want this to look like it's part of the light source and is being illuminated, that's really not where I want the attention to be drawn. I don't want the attention to be drawn to his sleeves or his clothing. I want it to be drawn to the light sources and his face. Speaking of light sources, let's go ahead and drop those in. So for his staff here, first of all, I need to grab my dry palette. Calico, what's up? Yeah, that would help. Turning up the volume definitely helps to hear things. Oh, gotta get my other palette here. So, what we're going to do is we're going to work on our lighting source here. So the fire is going to be magenta. Oop, cool. That one's already open. So we're going to add a little bit of magenta to our palette here. And then the other one's going to be blue. Left for where? So we'll take our magenta here. We'll make sure that we don't have too much. Then we're just going to apply it to our flame here to give it color, while still trying to leave the base, like in the recesses, that nice bright white. Like so. Oh. Alright. It's because I'm concentrating. Alright, so we'll dry off our dry brush here. And then we'll take our blue and start applying that to our crystal here. Ooh, this blue is nice and intense. I like it. And we'll just start dry brushing this a little bit. Well, that turned not into a dry brush, but more of just a paint. So I think what I'll do is I'll finish I'm just going to paint that one. That sky blue, and then I'll do something to make it look like it's glowing. I don't know. Typically, if it's glowing, the recesses would be nice and white, bright white, but I don't know, maybe try something different on this. Maybe doing a dry brushing of white instead to make all the edges look like it's crystal. And then just relying on our edges to make it look bright. Calico, I haven't seen that emoji in 3 weeks. And somehow it is still just as annoying. Cool. So those are the colors of our light sources. One is going to be blue, one is going to be magenta. which I think is going to look super cool because you're going to have two different contrasting colors, different on different areas. Just knocked over half the crap that was on top of that. Okay. All right. And now my hand looks like cotton candy. All right, so let's go ahead and base coat our leathers here. So for my chest leather, I'm going to use some burnt umber. It's a nice dark brown. So what I'm going to use for like the little chest piece that he's got on, as well as maybe some of like the other leather that he's wearing. And then I'll try to kind of give it some variation by adding ivory or, you know, something like that. To give it a little bit of a lighter, maybe some yellow, stuff like that. Interesting part about this is once we actually get to the point where we're ready to add our light source to the leather, that's going to be the fun part because there's a really nice pattern on his leather, while at the same time it looks kind of like it's going to be difficult to do it manually. So we're probably going to just end up using a dry brush, which we're going to have to be very precise in how we do that. Cotton candy in French translates to featherbeard. Well, that's something I could have gone my entire life without knowing, and now I will never eat cotton candy again. Although, who am I kidding? I'll probably forget about it tomorrow and go eat cotton candy. Because it's still delicious. Oh, fatherbeard. Still. That's even worse. One of the reasons I'm glad I didn't take French, because I feel like half the words I use, I'd be like, oh, I know the origin of it now and it's gross. Fatherbeard. Nope, 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 nope. Nope. Okay. There's some bit of his shirt that I didn't get. So we'll go ahead and grab a little bit of black here, water it down. And start painting that in. Funny part is I can't really tell Whether or not this little piece here is part of his shirt, or if it's something else. Yeah, I think this part here that I'm painting now, and then looking on the back, I think that's part of this green bit instead of the black bit. Flute Studios did not make it easy to figure that out. This is why English is better than French sometimes. And I got rid of all of my nice zenithal highlight with that black pass too. Oh well. I could fix it. Ish. Yeah. If we don't have a word, we make it up and the rest of the world just follows. That is true. But to be fair, half the words that we did make up were made up from French words. So, not sure what to do with that bit of information, but that is something. It's like, oh, that's a French word. Let's just change it slightly, make it English, and then tell the rest of the world we're the ones that did it. Which I'm pretty sure that that's what the English did anyway, with literally everything. I remember when Yeet came on the scene. I was a young lad at the time. How old was I in 2008? I was been 17. So it probably took me way too long to actually remember how old I was to do that math. Actually, at 17, I'm pretty sure I was about as big as I got as far as like height goes. As far as being fat goes, that was a... I worked hard to get to the weight that I am today, let's just put it that way. Or maybe I didn't work hard and that was the problem. Adding a little bit of our highlighting here. Again, directionally. I always stop and think that, speaking of being knee-high to a grasshopper, I always stop and think sometimes, like, what would myself think of who I am today when I was 17? Because I had a vastly different plan when I was 17 for what I was going to do when I became an adult. I don't know. I think that would be an interesting take. Like, if I could go back to 2008 and tell myself like what I'm doing now and some of the things that have gone on in my life, like what would I actually think about that and what decisions would I make differently, if any? Maybe I like, maybe 17-year-old me would like where I'm at now. Maybe he wouldn't. I don't know. So right now I'm making a glaze of this dark gray blue to apply to the side of his head to kind of give that kind of grayish hair look where it was like shaved away. Oof, that is way too vibrant. So that's really quick. Take some water and water that down as quickly as possible so that we're not basically just painting the back of his head blue. We didn't get the word potato from French. Their translation is ground apple. Sounds about right. What is that? Oh, it's an apple. Well, where'd you get it from? The ground. All right, well, let's call it ground apple. It's like, oh, okay. It's like, makes sense. So I'm just going to move this around, this glaze that I've got on here, until we get it to be nice and thin, a little bit less vibrant than we have it now, because again, we don't want it to look blue, we just want it to come a little bit closer to gray. Darken it just a touch to make it look like his hair has been shaved and that there's a little bit of stubble there left over. Like so. A little bit more, still a little too vibrant. Again, we want this to be very, very, very thin. There we go. If I keep this in frame. I'm a professional, can't you tell? There we go. All right, and then I'm going to paint his hair a dark brown. So we'll take some of our dark umber, some of our black, mix that together, and that will be our shadow for his hair. Well, to be fair, there are a lot of words that are translated into English that don't have the same, like, connotation that it does in the US, right? So, like, even though directly translated it is ground apple, it doesn't have that same, like, connotation in French, probably. So, like, for instance, if you go to Google and you use Google Translate to translate an English phrase into, say, Chinese, and then that same phrase from Chinese directly back to English, it's going to be completely different. or if you translate something from English to Chinese to Spanish and then back to English, it is unrecognizable as an English phrase because languages are just weird like that. So it's not surprising that that's a thing. There we go. So we got base coat for his hair done. Truth. Especially like when, you know, Japanese people look at a kanja on a shirt and it's completely different. Is that, did I use the right word? I don't know. Keep it in frame, noob. Once I get channel alerts, I should add or not channel alerts, whatever they're called, like where you can spend points on them. I should add one that sets off a channel alert that says, get it in frame, noob, and make it free. So every time I move the miniature out of frame while I'm painting it, y'all can just be like, hey! You're doing it wrong. You're doing the streamer thing completely wrong, bro. Come on, get with the program. Yeah, okay, so I did say it right. For once. But yeah, like whenever like a Japanese person rates tattoos and it's like, this is a recipe for wonton soup and you got it tattooed on your arm. It's like, no man, it means brave. It's like, no. It says add eggs to soup. Which is hilarious. I'm liking where this is headed. Again, his face kind of looks funky right now, but we'll see how it looks once we start to add our lighting source to everything and see how that turns out. But I think it's going to look fine. Gotcha. I didn't know the Chinese one was called Hanzi. That is new information that I did not have before. I'm going to take a little bit of ivory to this brown, just to give it a little bit of a difference. And then we'll add that to the belt here. Kind of not wanting to necessarily put up a like an update on this one on my Discord, mostly because I feel like the face looks so weird right now before I added any of like colors and stuff like that, that it would just not look great until I'm actually done the OSL. Then again, it might still look terrible. We'll see. Well, I am a Star Wars fan, so please don't trigger me. That would not be a good idea. Alright, where's the ban button? That's just objectively wrong. Like, I can't even be mad at that. Like, I don't know a single Star Wars fan who actually liked Boba Fett more than The Mandalorian. I mean, there are people who are like, yeah, Boba Fett was okay. But I have not met a single one who was like, oh yeah, it was definitely better than The Mandalorian. But I'll leave it at that, just so that I don't get all heated and upset. I'll let other people handle the wrongness of your statement, if they would like to engage. Every time I look up and I see that written there, I'm like, this needs to be censored. This is just like hate speech, I'm pretty sure. There we are. Facial hair all done. Need to do his eyebrows. Eyebrows weren't well defined, but they're there now. I'm assuming Obi-Wan at some point, because only somebody like Darth Vader can make that kind of statement. Either that or you had a family member die in the Mandalorian Wars. What's up, Tricky? How you doing, buddy? That is very true. Well, I don't have COVID anymore, so that's a plus. It was terrible. The first day that I had it was on Thursday of 2 weeks ago. Right? Yeah, Thursday 2 weeks ago. And it was the absolute worst. Like, I think I slept all day on Thursday because I felt so bad. Which I never do that. Like, as much as I joke about being lazy and sleeping in, like, I very rarely sleep all day. And then on Saturday, because I was actually, awake most of the day, that was probably the worst day. But yeah, it was not fun. I would not recommend catching it at any point. Really, I would not wish COVID on my worst enemy unless they think the Mandalorian was better or was worse than the Boba Fett. In that case, I hope you get COVID. Yeah, exactly. That is the only case where I would wish somebody would get COVID. You can get COVID more than once. Yeah, see, I was bragging about that too. Literally the day I got COVID. Like, before I was feeling any symptoms or anything like that, I was like, man, I haven't gotten COVID ever. It's June 2022. I got this thing beat. Haha, everybody else around me has gotten COVID, but I haven't, and then I get COVID. It's like, the world hates me. Wait, which TikTok was that? Is that the I'm alive, I'm dead, I'm up again, I'm looking at you, F you? That one? If so, then yes, that is the best TikTok ever. But to be fair, I had seen that before you sent it to me. Oh, that one. Dude, that was like, yeah, it was so frustrating. Because that was literally me. Felt like death. Alright, let me grab this bad boy again, and let's see if I can actually get the effect that I want. So we'll grab some titanium white. And we'll grab our dry brush here, just grab a little bit off the cap here. There we are, and we're just going to dry brush this little crystal here to give it a little bit of an icy look and to give it a little bit of a glow effect. That needs a little tiny bit of water. Come on, water. I need water. There we go. So there we are. Gives it a little bit of an icy look. Almost makes it look like it is glowing. Makes it look a little bit less like cotton candy now. Cool. Grab some water. Yeah. For me, like getting vaccinated, I'm not anti-vax or anything like that, but I was not vaccinated when I got it. I'm still not vaccinated technically because it's still too soon since I had it. But it was one of those things where I just never got around to it. And so I ended up getting COVID unvaxxed, but it was probably one of the later strains that wasn't as bad because there was a couple days there where I was like, I feel like I'm dying because I'm a guy and, you know, I over-exaggerate being sick. But like I never had an issue breathing or anything like that. It was basically just getting incredibly achy and just feeling really, really tired for a couple days, and that was pretty much it. All right, so let's go ahead and start highlighting up some of this stuff here. Again, paying attention to our direction. So we want to make sure that our light looks like it's coming from there. One of the reasons I never got vaccinated, and again, I'm not anti-vax, but like I've known vaccinated people who caught COVID and had it just as bad as I did. So it's like, all right, well, I'm lazy and I really don't feel like taking the time to take out of my day and go get the vaccine. And then I don't want to have to call in sick from work because I feel bad because so many people were talking about how the COVID vaccine made them feel like they were dying or like they got hit by a truck and they had to take days off work, and I just really didn't want to go through that. But now that I've actually had COVID, now I'm like, I might want to get the vaccine. are. Yeah, and that's kind of so opting, you know, I was kind of the same way, right? So I just felt like if I didn't have to get it, then I'm just not going to, because I didn't feel like I needed it. I'm not like one of the people who's like in danger of getting like really, really sick. So I'm not, you know, again, I'm not anti-vax, but I was just like, just don't feel like getting it. You know, from what, I'm not in danger of, you know, dying from it. Obviously I had it and lived. So it's just one of those things where it's like, if I don't have to, I'm not going to. Do our bright highlights here. There we go. And add a second coat here to our leather just so that we can get rid of, there's a couple white spots here and there just to make sure that we get all those covered, but I'm going to leave it with one coat because it's giving me that zenithal highlights, and I think it's looking okay. I don't really feel the need to really do anything more to that because it gives it that nice kind of washed out kind of look, but also we're getting those natural highlights from the zenithal, and I'm going to have to do lighting work anyway on it, so I'm not really going to worry about it too terribly much. I do want to make sure I get good coverage. That's about it. There we are. All right, so then we'll grab some of our black. And then we'll grab the inside of his robe here. Like so. There we go. Now there is some stuff here that I need to correct really quick. Just some empty spots. My grandfather used to call them holidays. I'm not sure if that was original to him, but that's something I always remembered. Whenever you're painting and you make a mistake or you miss a spot, just paint one on holiday. And we are starting to look pretty good here as far as stuff getting done. Now, I know for a fact I'm not going to finish this tonight. More than likely, I'll finish this a week from today, maybe. Just a reminder, I know I've said this already, but I do want to repeat it. I don't know if I'm going to be streaming on Monday or not, because I'll be going to my home state of Georgia to hang out with some family for my birthday weekend, which is coming up. So more than likely there'll be no stream on Monday, but it depends, right? Because I'll be driving up from Georgia on Monday. So depending on what time I leave, I may not even be here. But it also may be that driving up, I just get too tired and I don't want to stream. So just plan on there being no stream tomorrow, or Monday. And if there is, surprise! Calico, 3 men walk into a bar, the 4th one ducks. So, what I want to do now is I think I've made my decision. These bracers are going to be metal. So I'm going to base coat them as black, but I'm going to start in my non-metallic metal for those. I'm going to start mixing in magenta. On this one, and then the blue on that one. So that when we do our non-metallic metal, we have hints of those colors in before everything else does. Cool, and then we'll do the same on the other side. Now normally I don't use pure black when doing non-metallic metal, but these braces are so incredibly close to our lighting source that all of the shadows are going to be pretty close to pure black. Whereas normally what I would do is I would take a little bit of white, black, and then the color that I'm using as our light source to kind of give it a little bit of hint of color and start there. In this case, we want to start out with black, pure black. Yeah, I was kind of sensing that. I changed it the other day because I was actually listening to music instead of just using it for stream, so I turned it up a little bit, and I think I turned it up a little bit too loud. There we go. All right, let's get some magenta down on our doohickey here. And also, it doesn't help that that particular song is just a loud song. So we're going to take some dark gray here. And we're going to add a little bit of magenta to it. So we start getting hints of those colors in there. And this is going to be our next one. I'm into some anime. It depends. Like, some anime I really enjoy, but then there are others where I'm like, oh, this is like super cringy and I don't really like it. So some I do like, some I'm just not into. Like, I'm pretty sure I would probably like animes like Titan, whatever it's called. I enjoyed the Ten Commandments. I also really liked, or no, sorry, not Ten Commandments, Seven Deadly Sins. That's what it was called. I also really liked Castlevania, and depending on whether you consider it an anime or not, I really enjoyed Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't remember what it was called. What it's called. I mean, you could help me out by telling me what the name of it was. That would be helpful. Holy cow! That's on that, and it just got onto my desk mat because for like 2 seconds I set my handle on the desk mat instead of my cutting pad here. And now it's all dirty and gross. I just watched it too. Attack on Titan, that's it. Yeah. Fair enough. But I'm also concentrating on more than one thing right now. I'm trying to talk to y'all. I'm trying to paint stuff and whatever. It was an honest mistake, okay? Alright, so we're doing the same thing over here, adding a little bit of blue to our dark gray, and that is going to be our first highlight color for our metal here. Okay. This is going to show my ignorance, and please don't hate me for what I'm about to say, but I thought Gundams were action figures. I didn't realize that there was an actual anime for it. Because I come from the hobbying world, right? So, like, a lot of painters and modelers that are like into Warhammer and stuff like that I am are also into Gundams or building and assembling Gundams. You know what? I'm sorry. I wasn't allowed to watch anime when growing up, so this is an area of pop culture and nerddom that I am woefully ignorant about. I'm willing to admit that. I do, but the problem is it's like one of those things where because I haven't been in the anime world much, I don't really know where to start. So like, you know, obviously I've seen a couple, but those are literally stuff that I like randomly chose on whatever's on freaking Netflix at the time. technically the kind of girl, but yes. I say technically the kind of girl, but she's also one of the boys, if you know what I mean. I think that metallic effect is coming along pretty good. Now we're really going to crank up the brightness. We take basically that pure light gray, add our magenta to it. A little bit more gray than magenta probably there. And we're going to add a bright spot to these. And then the next highlight after this one is just going to be a pure, just straight up white. All right, there's my blue. Let's grab gray. A little bit of blue. And we'll do the same on the other side. Whew, getting the handshakes a little bit there. Alright, now we're going to go to pure white. So we're going to grab our white here. You are bro, Calico. Which, asking any guy ever, saying you're one of the boys is probably the best compliment any guy could actually give you. So the only anime horror I've seen is Parasite, which I really did like Parasite. I also started watching Sword Art Online, but I never finished it because I forgot I was watching Sword Art Online. Hashtag ADHD problems. Yeah, I feel like anime, because it's anime, it goes one of two ways. Either really kid-friendly or, like, incredibly adult. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's a fair assessment, but I always felt like that was the case. So you watch anime that had very mild horror in it and use it to minimize the window for those parts. Yeah. Anime horror, I feel like, is one of those things that is just like insane. Like for some of the anime episodes of Love, Death, and Robots were like insane. Gosh, I need to be more careful. I just dipped my handle in the freaking paint again. Alright, I think those look metallic enough. For now, at least. And that's fair. Like, for me, I generally don't like the horror genre, mostly not because it's creepy or anything like that, but I feel like half the time that the horror genre is just an excuse to put gore on the screen. Like, there are very few things that I've seen in my life that are considered horror that I felt like were actually scary and just not just a bunch of gore on the screen. Changing up this highlight a little bit. There we are. Yeah, exactly. You know, in for me, The Boys, I didn't like The Boys mainly because, like, I watch superhero stuff because I want to escape the realness of reality, right? I want to get away from the fact that we can't trust our heroes and that we can't, trust that people are going to be decent human beings half the time. The Boys just takes the concept of superheroes and puts it in reality. Like, I don't want reality. The reason I'm watching superhero stuff is to get away from all of that stuff, which is the primary reason why I didn't like it, and the fact that it was gore for the sake of gore as well, which I'm not a huge fan of. It's okay if something is gory as long as there's purpose and intentionality behind that gore. And at least half the time, I feel like there is no intentionality. It's just gore for the fact. It's like, oh man, we want to be different, and we want to be like, we want to be different and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, you're not different. You're just more gory than everyone else, and that's not different enough for me. Yeah, exactly. I've never heard of Mr. Robot. Yeah, what's funny is the one horror flicks that I've actually enjoyed. It's because they were open and honest about the fact that they were just in it for the gore, like Saw. Saw's not pretending to be a horror movie; it's just gore, right? So I can enjoy that. But if it's like, we are the scariest movie of the summer, and then you go there and it's just a bunch of like teens getting their heads chopped off, I'm like, that's not scary. That's just gore. There's a difference. I think that looks nice. Alright, so I like where we're headed so far. I think I'm going to make the top part of this staff here gold. And then the rest of this like top bit here silver. I still don't really know exactly how I'm going to make that work, but we will. So for the most part, I think we're done for tonight because we've been going about 2 hours and 15 minutes. There's not really a ton I can do on this miniature right now without kind of starting something I know I can't finish, which I hate doing. So we'll go ahead and stop there. So, like I said, the next thing we're going to do is the top of the staff here. You know what? No, let's go ahead and see if we can't do this top of the staff tonight. I think we can do it. So let's do that. So first things first is we're going to base coat it in the brown that we were using earlier. Where is it? There it is. That will be our first task, because this is going to be kind of the base coat for our gold. Yes, Calico. So we're really going to want this layer to be pretty opaque, so we're going to do multiple layers. And then below that, dude, there are so many freaking bits of support material on this staff. Let's see if I can break it off with my fingernail. If not, I'll have to go get a knife. I did not do a good job of cleaning this print off before I started. Oh well. We'll deal with it. So, top of this is going to be this nice dark brown, and then the rest of it we're going to base coat in black. And then we'll start adding in our yellows for our gold. So this whole process that we're about to do for this staff is pretty much going to be identical to what we just did with the arm bracers. So we're just going to, interestingly enough, this black is now not wanting to stick to this. So we're going to have to do, again, multiple coats. And I need to grab some more black too, because I'm almost out. There we are. A little water, and we should be good to go. There we go. That's so much better. Holy cow. Fresh paint makes a difference, y'all. Who would have knew? Who would have thought it? So it's interesting. So for those of you who have worked with a wet palette before, you know this. It's kind of the opposite of when you're normally working with paint. When you're normally working with paint, your concern is that the paint is going to dry out. But on a wet palette, it's the exact opposite. You're worried that your paint is actually going to get too thin and can't be used. So it's literally the exact opposite concern. Because the way a wet palette is, you have a semi-permeable membrane, and through osmosis, the water gets pulled into the paint as it dries. Well, sometimes the water will be pulled into the paint, but the paint hasn't dried yet. Or the water that's in the paint or the medium or whatever hasn't evaporated. So what you end up with is a paint that's thinner than when you actually put it down. which is annoying. It really is. But then again, like, that's one of the interesting things about Star Wars is even the background characters have this massive backstory. It's really interesting to kind of work through those characters. Like the little creature that was like on Jabba the Hutt's like throne, he has a name. His name is Salacious Crumb. He's a named Star Wars character. And all he does is he's a creature that laughs. Alright, so now we're going to take some, not Naples Yellow Deep. What do we want? We want, it's pretty much the same. Yeah, we'll use this. We'll use this. Because it's already open. So we're going to take some of this stuff, and this is going to be our quote-unquote mid-tone for our gold. And then we'll very quickly add a lots and lots and lots of white to this, so that by the time we're done, we're really hitting the that contrast. Just gonna be very careful here, making sure that we add yellow only to the points that will be reflecting this light source. One of the interesting things about this is we're not actually going to add as much color, if any, really, like we did with like we're going to with the rest of this silver. Pretty much just going to use yellow, and we'll add a little bit of color once we start getting into our brighter white colors. Have to go back and correct some of that because I'm trying to really control that yellow, and it kind of got out of control. Alright, we're just gonna add some white around the rim here, or white, yellow. How in the world did I get black on the crystals? I don't know. There we are. Fix that. Now I'm going to go back with this brown and try to clean up some of these lines here on the inside. Dude, my hand is shaking like crazy and I don't really know why right now. Maybe because I haven't painted in 2 weeks, so some of the muscles are like, no, I don't want to be used right now. All right, so we're gonna take some yellow, take some white, and then a little bit of our blue. Add a little bit more white and yellow here, because we really want that blue to be desaturated. We're going to use this as kind of a mid highlight, I guess you could say. It's not really mid-tone. More white. So we want this to be a little bit more desaturated. little bit of that blue, but not much. So what did you learn about the rule of two? And what did you find interesting about it? The rule of two really is an interesting concept. It makes sense with the theory of the Force that it originally came from. So, kind of, yeah. So, originally what the rule of two was for was to prevent that, right? So the rule of two was by a guy named Darth Bane. And essentially what he said is that the Sith, during the time of the Sith-Jedi War, like 2,000-3,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, the Sith craved power so much so that they were destroying themselves internally. They were essentially saying that they craved so much power that they never had any hope of actually conquering the galaxy or doing anything they wanted to do because they were too busy fighting amongst each other. So the rule of two essentially said, okay, fine. Darth Bane said, I'm going to kill all the Sith, and he did. And I'm going to set up my own rule. And my rule says there can only ever be two Sith, a master and an apprentice. And so the master will hold all the power, and the apprentice will strive for the power. So the apprentice will become the master once he kills his master, and then he'll take on an apprentice. That way, the apprentice will always have to be more powerful or more cunning than the master. And so by the time the Sith take over, they will be so much more powerful because they've been in constant struggles for power to the point where they would constantly be outdoing each other. And then by the time the Sith take over the galaxy, they would be an unstoppable force. And that's exactly what happened, right? So Darth Sidious killed his master, Darth Plagueis. And he was able to conquer the galaxy finally after several thousand years after Darth Bane. Even though he didn't really pay attention to the rule of two, because while he was still an apprentice of Darth Plagueis, he was mentoring and teaching Darth Maul. So Plagueis was actually still alive during the events of Phantom Menace, which is the first movie. Or first movie, episode 1, I should say. So, like back to your point, the whole reason the rule of two is there is because they crave power to the point where they're like, all right, let's kill everyone else so that eventually we would have all the power in the universe. And it worked. Oh, shoot. Mother. Oh, just spilled literally a bunch of paint all over my desk, man. Got me thinking about Star Wars too much, Calico. Oh, crud nuggets. So Bane survived, and then he took on a new apprentice. So Bane, who was the originator of the Rule of Two, survived the death of all the Sith because he's the one that killed them, and he took on an apprentice to strive after his power. Now, I'm not sure if all of that's canon because that comes from the books in the extended universe, and I'm not sure if that particular book is still considered canon or not. Because, you know, Disney has its like new canon and all that. Which I'm not a huge fan of, but it's there. Go, almost done. The gold bits. There we are. Gold. Gosh, I can't believe that. I don't know if y'all can't see it. Hold on. That little bit right there. Spilled a whole blob of white paint right there. So mad. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our kind of darker blue highlight here. And we're going to start highlighting up our first little bit here. Really weird angles on this thing. Oops. Accidentally painted over a spot I shouldn't have. There we are. All fixed. So, no. So the Sith, so the Jedi came out from, and this is super creative, right? So the Jedi came out from a group known as the Jedi. And I think it's spelled similar to Jedi, but I think it's like G-E-D-D-A-I or something like that. And originally they used both the light side and the dark side of the Force. And the Sith weren't around. So the Sith were actually a species, red-skinned species with like facial tentacles. They look really weird. But the galaxy lived in harmony. The Jedi watched over them. And then there was a species, I can't remember the name of it, who were only dark side users and then used the dark side specifically to conquer. And that kind of seduced some of the Sith species over to use the same tactic. And there was one of the Jedi decided that it was probably better if you don't use the dark side of the Force at all, since it can be used for that kind of destructive power. And so then he birthed the first Jedi Council, and he actually ended up killing the members, if I remember correctly, killing all the members of the first Jedi Council because he felt like they had too much power and that they were using the Force for evil means. Say all this, realizing how much of a freaking nerd I am. You know what? This might be easier, instead of doing it the way I'm doing it, to just base coat it and then go back and refill in the lines black. Yeah, it's an interesting story about how the Jedi came into being, and I believe it's canon too, because I believe that was in a Disney comic, if I remember correctly. Pretty much, yeah. And I'm one of those who, in my opinion, the Jedi of what's known as the Golden Age of the Jedi, which is right before the Clone Wars, were too powerful. They definitely lost their way. They didn't necessarily have too much power, but I believe that when we're talking about balance, right? I'm one of the Star Wars nerds that thinks balance doesn't mean that you wipe out the dark side. But that's what the Jedi believe. The Jedi believe to bring about balance to the Force, you would need to wipe out all the Sith, right? Because the Sith are evil. Well, that's not balance, right? That's one-sided. And some people would say that that's why Sheev Palpatine, i.e. Emperor Palpatine, was able to get so much power, why he was so powerful. Because the Force, in an attempt to balance itself, imbued Emperor Palpatine with the power of the dark side. That's what Bane wanted with the Rule of Two. And why, after the Jedi were wiped out, why Luke was so powerful. Because the light side of the Force imbued all of its power into one single individual instead of a group. Now that's more of a fan theory, because George Lucas has come out to say that balance in the Force is the prominence of the light side. But again, that's not exactly balance. That's more of an imbalance. But it's his universe and his world, so he gets to decide what balance means for him, I guess. Alright, let's go ahead and start our highlighting. Yep, every universe does. No magic system in fantasy is perfect. The Force is being one of those. I think for me, the best Magic system I've ever seen in Fantasy is probably by Brandon Sanderson. But I'm a Brandon Sanderson fanboy, so. Yeah, his I've seen a couple of his courses on YouTube, which, you know, holy cow, how awesome is he to put those out for free? And they're solid. Like, my minor is in creative writing. My minor in college was in creative writing, and I definitely appreciate the fact that a lot of the courses that I took in college are free, available from him. So. Yeah. Messed that up. It's alright. Sexy thumbs and dropping paint everywhere. What's up, Cal? I know I just messed up. Where'd that mistake go? Oh, there it is. You know you're way too anal about your mistakes when you can't even find them after you make them. Sorry, what? It's probably the weirdest thing I've ever heard anybody say about one of my appendages, but okay. That'd be hilarious. Like, I die and what's on my tombstone is Stormer. He had sexy thumbs. Sorry I'm not talking. This is requiring a lot of concentration to prevent me from absolutely screwing this up. gosh, is that canon now? Official Stormer canon. I've named my thumbs Cinnamon and Crystal. Yeah, get out of here. At least I get the satisfaction knowing I have my own lore now. Maybe weird lore, but I have my own lore. Getting close to finishing this up. There we are. All right. I think that looks somewhat metallic. More than it did before. All right. Thumb G-strings. I don't even know where to go from there. Like oh my gosh. Well, I do believe that's going to be it for tonight. Now that my chat is now talking about G-strings for my thumbs. Although we could get little hot tubs and I could just stick my hands in them. I mean, this is technically a just chatting stream. Bro, student loans are for real though, dude. Didn't realize my thumbs had them, but my gosh. So I'm just taking a dark wash really quick and just setting it in these recesses. Mostly because this is going to help cover up some of those mistakes that I made. Hopefully make it look a little bit more clean. Love how I said that I'm going to end the stream and then continue the stream. I feel like that happens a lot more with me than not. Or like I'll get excited for a miniature, forget that I stopped streaming and keep painting. That's happened before as well. is definitely helping a lot. Just going to darken all of these crevices. If I had any slipping with my brush where I got a little bit in those crevices, instead of going through with pure black and making more possibly making more mistakes, this is just going to help me cover up all of that sloppiness. There we are. All right, cool. So I think he's looking pretty decent so far. Next time we're going to work on finishing up, blocking out all of our colors, doing all of our shades and recesses and highlights and things like that. And then after that, we'll add in all of our color effects. We've kind of already started with some of the metallics. That's basically because there really isn't a way to add color to non-metallic metal after it's done. So we're gonna do, whenever we do non-metallic metal on this miniature, we're gonna go ahead and do the lighting effect before that. But for now, I think we'll go ahead and stop there. Like I mentioned, just gonna mention it one more time, just for the sake of Cal, because I don't think he was here. I may not be streaming on Monday because I'll be driving back up from Georgia, but definitely going to be streaming on Monday. Yeah, so just noticed something. Hold on. So evidently I'm not ending the stream just yet because I'm anal about my miniatures. All right. Now I'm done. I'm setting it aside. I need to stop. All right, guys and girls and ladies and people. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm super excited for the next stream to finish this awesome mini and to get to hang out with you awesome people. I guess I will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful week.